Welcome to the Ultrahuman experience. This session is free for you for the complete experience. Please download the Ultrahuman app.
Good evening. My name is Brad Ziffer. Tonight, we go back in time to the age of the gods and the myths that speak to us universally through the ages. The great love story of Eros and Psyche is one that moves the heart. Eros was the god of love and used his powerful bow and arrows to bring love to the world. Psyche, whose name means soul, was a great mortal beauty who needed to be seen for who she really was. This is a story of two souls who had to search before they could find love. Breathe deeply and let this enchanting myth send you off to happy dreams. Eros stood on top of Mount Olympus, looking down upon the earth, shrouded from human eyes by clouds that completely obscured its peaks. Mount Olympus was the majestic home of the ancient gods. This sacred mountain had a balmy climate all year round, and mountain gorges lush with emerald green forests. 12 Olympian gods resided in this paradise, including Eros's mother, Aphrodite, the goddess of beauty and pleasure. Upon his mother's command, Eros had come to Mount Olympus, even though he didn't live with the Olympians. Eros preferred to live in seclusion, away from the daily feasts and the discussions of the fates of the mortals. Wise beyond his years, Eros had always been playful, yet gentle. As the god of love, he yielded great power. Touched by one of his golden light arrows, god or mortal would be smitten and surrender to loving whoever was in front of their eyes. He had dedicated all of himself to creating romantic love for the gods and others, but alas, had not yet found it for himself. His heart was hardened by cynicism. From observing for millennia some of the turmoil lovers experience, Aphrodite, the goddess of beauty, had beckoned Eros to her magnificent temples for a reason. Aphrodite wanted him to get rid of a mortal rival. Eros understood that this was something she could not tolerate, because his mother was accustomed to being worshipped by gods and men from all over the universe as the greatest beauty imaginable. They showered her with compliments and gifts, from garlands of flowers to irresistible perfumes, gold jewels, emeralds, rubies, diamonds, silk and brocade garments, poetic words, and anything they could conjure up. From head to toe, everything about her pleased the eye. She had silken, shiny hair, sparkling eyes like pools that men felt themselves falling into, the softest skin, and a face with perfect features. She was considered the ultimate in beauty, matched by none other. But one day, Aphrodite found she was receiving much less attention, fewer gifts, and after a time, all the adulation seemed to disappear. Her temples were abandoned. Her altars were covered with cold ashes, and the sculptors had ceased making statues of her. She discovered that she had a rival who was immortal. Psyche, the daughter of a king and noble wife, was a gentle soul, and her beauty surpassed even Aphrodite's. Over time, all the honors reserved for Aphrodite began to be offered to her. Psyche had a special radiance that no man could resist, and men from all over the world traveled long distances to be hypnotized by her beauty. It was true that Psyche's beauty surpassed even Aphrodite's. It was not only that her face, eyes, hair, skin, body, and posture were all flawless. There was something about her that glowed from within, adding immeasurably to her astounding physical beauty. Despite her royal status, Psyche treated everyone with respect and kindness. Very curious about every aspect of life, Psyche read widely and was always looking to learn new things, not only from books, but also from interesting conversations. Her eyes sparkled with intelligence and goodwill. Although Psyche received unending admiration, none of the men ever courted her. They looked upon her mesmerized, as if she was a magnificent painting or an extraordinary sculpture, and not a human being. None of them dared to consider the thought of marrying her. They all left with bliss in their hearts, savoring her image in their minds. But Psyche was more than an image or an unmoving statue. She was a human being who longed for love. Although she had yet to fall in love with someone, it was even more surprising that no one had fallen in love with her. Psyche had two sisters who were themselves great beauties. They did not compare to Psyche. Nevertheless, they both married kings and were living in great splendor and luxury, while the most beautiful sister, Psyche, seemed destined to live alone. Aphrodite wanted to be sure Psyche would never emerge again to draw men away from their worship of her. So she came up with a plan. She wished for Eros to use his magical golden bow and arrows to make Psyche fall in love with an ugly man who would hide her away for the rest of her days. Eros was delighted to have the special power of making people fall in love. He enjoyed creating happiness and pleasure. But Aphrodite's request did not feel right. He was curious about Psyche and wanted to see this famous beauty for himself. He wanted to obey his mother, but his inner voice told him that there was something to discover before he wielded the great power of his bow and arrow. He went to a place where he could contemplate this task. It was a special spot atop a mountain near his palace, where he could gaze at the blue ocean, the ocean waves, feel the breeze, and listen to his heart. As the god of love, Eros often contemplated this emotion. And today, he looked out at the puffy white clouds and the sky as he wondered. He thought about the different kinds of love. His love for his parents, and his love of animals and nature. But for all the couples he had created with his magical bow and golden light arrows, he didn't know exactly what romantic love felt like. Would he ever feel the unique affection of that special kind of love? He tried to imagine what it would be like if he was pierced with one of his own arrows, but his imagination fell short. His heart felt a little heavy at the thought of not having a companion who would be his lover and wife. Eros knew from experience that feeling the weight of these emotions limited his ability to create love for others. And so, he decided to release these feelings with a gentle meditation he had learned during his travels around the universe. Gently closing his eyes, Eros took a deep breath. Crisp air rushed into his being. He continued to breathe deeply, smelling the beautiful green grass, the fragrance of the flowers, and the scent of the ocean. Eros's face softened into a smile. His jaws relaxed, and one by one, all of his muscles began to let go. Gently releasing his thoughts, Eros began to connect deeply with the love in his heart. His heart had a deep capacity to feel and offer love. And for that, he silently praised the gods. Gradually, he shifted his awareness to his breath again, becoming aware of the breath as it came into his body and as it left his body. He simply became aware of the feeling himself becoming still. Eros expanded his awareness beyond his breath to his body, noticing the sensations. Slowly and ever so gently, he rested his awareness on his thoughts, observing each thought as it came up in his mind, and the passing of each thought without judgment. He began to notice how his body, mind, and heart were feeling in the moment. Gently placing his right hand over his heart, Eros silently spoke to himself. I am letting go of this feeling. I am letting go of this feeling. I am letting go of this feeling. With each exhale, he visualized the feeling leaving him, replaced by the beautiful golden light of love. Smiling gently, he affirmed, I am one with love. I am one with love. I am one with love. And as he connected more deeply with the love within him, his entire being began radiating with the golden light of love. The love from his heart poured into the world. And in that moment, all beings everywhere felt a deep joy within their hearts. Taking a few deep breaths, Eros thanked his heart and felt grateful for the power of love that was within him. He decided to take a few days for himself before setting out to fulfill his task. In this way, he would allow his heart to show him the way. Eros decided to spend this time at his home. He lived in great luxury and sometimes thought to himself about how much he had to share. His magnificent palace was filled with exquisite paintings made with soft sable brushes and marble sculptures that seemed alive in their perfection. Elaborate furnishings created with a variety of wood, bronze, and lacquer filled the rooms. Invisible servants served his every need, and there was always an abundance of everything he could desire. Tables were set with elaborate silverware and ornate silver cups. The harmonious music of a lyre and flute floated through the mansion. And entertainment was always at the ready. After a short stay at his palace, Eros knew he had to follow his mother's wishes and set out on a journey to find Psyche. After searching far and wide, Eros found Psyche in a garden, talking to her parents. As he neared them, Eros saw her mother, the queen, was shedding tears, while her father, the king, was shaking his head. He prohibited Psyche from leaving the castle. Psyche pleaded with them to allow her the opportunity to find herself. Eros realized that Psyche was requesting permission to go on a journey of self-discovery, to live by herself in the woods. Psyche argued that she had waited many years to find a suitable husband who would love and cherish her. So many men had appreciated her beauty, but not one had ever tried to get to know her or asked for her hand in marriage. And not once had her heart felt the slightest softness toward any man. She had never felt love blossom in her heart. And so, Psyche told her parents that the one person she needed to know and love the most was herself. It was the right time for her to find herself. And this wasn't possible while living in the luxury of the palace. Smiling to himself, Eros thanked the gods for his good fortune. His task was going to be easier than he had anticipated. Patiently, he waited for the family to finish discussing their plans. Finally, the king and queen relented and accepted Psyche's request. Eros watched as Psyche packed up only a few belongings, leaving behind the many gifts she had received. she took only the plainest of her clothing, ready to live simply, and to leave behind all the fancy trappings of her life. He could see that she was modest and humble, and did not seem to have any vanity. His heart was touched as he watched her parents and sisters weep, as they told Psyche how much they would miss her kindness and all the attention and care she gave them. Eros could see that there was more to her than her physical beauty. He felt some sympathy for Psyche, but could not disappoint his mother. So he searched for the remote place where Psyche had gone to search her soul. He flew all over and surveyed rocks and cliffs, valleys and forests. One day, he spotted her, sitting alone. He stayed out of her sight, silently observing her as she wandered around, and decided to wait before taking any action. She looked a little lonely and sad. He could tell she was searching within herself for answers to who she was and what her life was for. He began to see how Psyche appeared to fit into the landscape, smelling the flowers, singing with the birds, and admiring the moon and the stars. Eros felt Psyche was courageous. She had chosen to find herself in solitude, without resentment at her lack of marriage proposals. Every day, he saw her becoming happier as she luxuriated in the trees and plants, appreciating all the different shades of green. Watching her, Eros felt he appreciated the natural beauty of flowers much more. Red roses, pink tulips, purple irises, yellow cornflowers, and lavender lilacs had never looked so beautiful to him. Psyche seemed happy in this place that was so far from the great luxury and comfort she had known. She showed no signs of self-pity. Instead, when it rained, she swirled around, open-armed, with her beautiful face lifted up to the sky, cherishing the feeling of raindrops on her face. At night, she would gaze at the stars, with her eyes shining in awe of the cosmos chocolate, long-legged horse and a bushy-tailed squirrel wandered by, she lit up and charmed them with sweet words to draw them closer to her. And not one ever tried to hurt her. She welcomed them all and offered love and appreciation to every single creature. They could hear the loving kindness in her voice and never ran away in fear. She was fascinated by them and enjoyed their company. Psyche seemed to be connected to every living thing. One day, he heard her peacefully meditating on a rock. Captivated by the deep peace and tranquility emanating from her, Eros sat down to watch her. After several minutes of observation, he noticed that Psyche was mastering her breath. Smiling fondly, Eros began to relax in Psyche's presence. Gradually, he found himself following her lead, inhaling deeply when she inhaled, then holding his breath, and then exhaling. Eros's eyes slowly began to close in deep meditation. As they meditated together, a stillness began to emanate from them. Eros's immortal heart radiated love and peace, and from it emerged a river of golden light. The light was so glorious and brilliant that it flooded everything in the forest. All the trees, flowers, birds, and animals, even the earth, were drenched with love. Psyche's entire being became suffused with Eros's love. She felt golden light in every atom of her being. Her heart opened and blossomed. It was filled with deep joy. As the light between their hearts grew stronger and stronger, a strong connection was formed. Intuitively, they became aware of each other's presence, feeling truly loved and safe. And even though no words were exchanged from there on, Psyche felt Eros's loving presence by her side. Eros knew Psyche's gentle, loving spirit comforted him deeply. The cynicism that had hardened his heart had melted away. He did not need to pierce himself with an arrow to love her and her inner beauty. Every day, he watched Psyche as she gazed with admiration at the colors of the birds. The red robins, blue jays, and yellow goldfinches. He could tell she loved listening to their chirping and singing. It touched his heart that Psyche made sure to water the plants each day so that they were nourished. She ate only what she needed and would gently replant any roots or seeds that she didn't need. Psyche lived in tune with nature, appreciating the trees, flowers, and animals, showing affection and sensitivity to every living creature. Eros enjoyed Psyche's beautiful voice, whether she was speaking or singing. He noticed that although sometimes she might sigh and shed a tear, she would never make a harsh sound or raise her voice to yell at her fate. She was careful not to disturb her surroundings, but instead she blended in as if she was at one with every plant, tree, and animal. Eros could see that she was not only physically beautiful, but that it went down right to her very soul. Each day that he observed her, his feelings grew stronger and stronger. Eros was discovering love for himself. Now Eros had a serious dilemma. From the start, he had been hesitant to complete the task his mother had set him. But it was hard to imagine going against her wishes. Yet, he could not dream of using his bow and arrow to make Psyche fall in love and marry someone else. He admitted to himself that he had fallen in love with her. But how could he marry a mortal and tell his mother that her rival was the woman he loved? Yet, he could not think of his lovely Psyche with someone else, no less someone who might not appreciate her and care for her the way he would. He asked himself how he could live without her, now that he knew and loved her soul so very deeply. Like Psyche, Eros was admired for his beauty and seen as a messenger of love. He knew how it felt when people only saw his physical beauty without any appreciation for his inner being. He felt his heart resonate with Psyche's heart. He was sure that she had grown even happier and more joyful with him around her, even though she did not know the reason. But, in fact, Psyche did know of his presence, for she felt it in her heart. She felt his protective spirit around her. Every day, when she sat to meditate, she knew the exact moment he arrived to sit beside her. It made her feel less lonely, even though she could not see anyone around her. In her heart, she felt grateful, knowing that there was a caring force watching over her. She felt happier when she felt his presence, but she wondered why he wouldn't reveal himself to her. Yet much of the time, Psyche was focused on her inner quest to find her true self and to love herself. And this was coming to pass. Without any distractions, she meditated and immersed herself in nature, feeling the interconnection and oneness of all life. She discovered deep in her heart that she was as worthy of love as everyone and everything in the universe. While so many had appreciated her only for her physical appearance, she understood that her value was not based on her physical beauty. She felt love and gratitude for life itself and for all creation. She felt at peace with herself and a happiness she had not experienced before. One evening, just as the sun was setting, Psyche saw a beautiful ripe peach. Wanting to eat it, she climbed a tree and was about to fall. Suddenly, she felt as if she was being cradled and placed gently on the ground. "Why won't you show yourself to me?" she thought. Eros couldn't resist the forlorn look in her eyes. As sunlight faded into darkness, Eros appeared before her, but she could only see his shadow in the dim light. When he spoke to her, Psyche recognized his kind, protective, and caring spirit. Eros spoke of his deep love for her, and Psyche admitted to feeling the same way. However, Eros had one request. He could only be with her in the dark. and Psyche could never see his face. She would have to trust him and their love for each other. Even though she was curious about his appearance and why she could not see him, she immediately felt that they were meant for each other and trusted him. She felt safe and secure and let him fly her back to his palace. She instantly felt at home. While the palace was elegant and filled with everything she had ever wanted, what mattered most was that she was with the man she loved and who loved her. It did not matter that she could not see his face. She felt his kind and loyal heart and felt safe and secure with him. They both felt a deep connection and compassion for each other. They inspired each other to learn and experience more, and their time together was filled with pleasure, laughter, and joy. In this place of love and joy, we bid farewell to Psyche and Eros. There is much, much more that happens to Psyche and Eros, and their love for each other grows deeper and deeper. But for tonight, we leave their story here. Good night, and sweet dreams.